I want to go across now to Atul Keshap, President of the US-India Business Council. Remember, you've got two big forums that work very closely in the India-America relationship, so we've got the heads of both. Mr. Keshap, thank you very much for joining us. Fantastic having you. Big day. There's a big press conference in D.C. a short while from now. President Trump threatening retaliatory sanctions against unnamed countries. Do you think India is likely to feature? And what impact, if that happens, could this have on the bilateral between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi? Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, Rahul. And let me say that as a diplomat of long standing, my feeling has always been that truth and reciprocity are the keys to lasting and enduring friendship. And so sometimes, even with our friends, we have to speak truthfully and we have to explain where we have some issues. And I think that's true for India toward America and for America toward India. And so I'm hopeful that whatever these announcements are today, that they will actually create a moment of truth and clarity that help us break through the plateau in our economic and business and trade relations. So I see this as entirely catalytic and possibly very hopeful.
I'm not sure. This is because you've called the Indian Prime Minister there, Mr. Keshap, and that's the day you choose to announce these tariffs. Had the timing been different, I may have agreed with you. There's a sense of inevitability in Delhi that there will be trade tariffs and they're coming regardless. And the government is already gearing up to deal with that. We saw some cuts and announcements in Finance Minister Sitharaman's budget. But if this happens just hours before Modi and Trump meet, does it not sour the mood of the meeting to some extent?
Rahul, I heard you talking to my colleague Mukesh Aghi, and I disagree with the thrust of your questioning, because at the end of the day, I cannot say with any certainty that anybody was called anywhere. I think this was a mutual decision of President Trump and Prime Minister Modi to meet, because the United States and India are two of the most consequential countries on earth, and we are the largest free societies on earth. And it is a moment of tremendous risk for the free societies. If you look at the technology foot race that is happening right now between the United States and China and the great power competition that is happening, it is entirely right and proper that the Prime Minister and President meet as soon as possible to level set on what the United States and India are trying to achieve in world affairs. So I disagree with the concept that he has been called. I don't think that's the case at all. And further, I think both of them have a lot to talk about in terms of the Indo-Pacific, the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, and most importantly, our technology convergence. Now, how and the discussions will take place is, of course, up to the two leaders, and we will see how it goes. But my sense is that we are in the foothills of what could be a negotiation toward an ambitious trade agreement, because that's what was happening in the last days of Trump 1. And in truth, we need a trade agreement. There are enough tariffs and non-tariff barriers that impede the growth of the relationship.
No, but isn't this moving faster than logical? The new Commerce Secretary hasn't been sworn in. Our Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and Robert Lighthizer in the first term were working on a limited trade deal, and that made some progress but couldn't be concluded. There's a process. I mean, this press conference, the dramatics, the theatrics, I understand the need to appease the MAGA base, but there's a process. Your own Commerce Secretary isn't he's not ratified just yet, and therefore how do you negotiate? This just seems, from an Indian lens, a lot of posturing and pressure tactics.
Yeah, but see, Rahul, look, I have to disagree with you. I was a U.S. ambassador. The executive's power in America to negotiate in foreign relations is absolutely enshrined in the Constitution. The notion that we don't have a confirmed Commerce Secretary is no reason not to start negotiating. We have plenty of people in the administration, in the National Economic Council, in the United States Trade Representative's Office, in the National Security Council, in the embassies that can start negotiating. There is a lot that could be within our grasp. And so I don't agree with the frame at all. I think this is a great moment for actually launching meaningful talks that can take us out of the doldrums of our current trade relationship. Yes, we have a good technology convergence, but the trade relationship is vastly underpowered for where it ought to be because of tariffs, non-tariff barriers, and other complications, including bureaucratic red tape, that need to be addressed. So truth, as I said, is the basis of friendship. Reciprocity can be the basis of friendship. Let's start a trade negotiation. Let's get to a good point. Let's unleash the prosperity of our countries. I think this is a great time to start. And I'm actually delighted that within 3 weeks of President Trump's second term, the leader of the biggest democracy on earth is visiting. It's a great thing for our people.
Let's zoom out of tariffs for a moment, Mr. Keshap, and look at the other aspects which are on the table in this relationship. Because there is security, there is technology, I said many others. There's also the issue of jet engines, which the Biden administration signed but haven't started being delivered to India. So, so much of the focus has been on tariffs. What do you see happen on the other issues? Because, India, for example, is waiting for those jet engines which were promised but haven't landed up.
Yeah, look, so there have been supply chain crunches all around the world. And look, I think both sides have worked very hard to address these supply chain issues, but every country and every company has been plagued by them since the pandemic. What I'm confident of is that there's going to be progress on defense. I think it's important. It's a necessary imperative for both of our countries. In order for us to ensure peace and stability in the world, the great democracies have to have a potent deterrent capability. And the US and India are at the very center of that. So I wish them best of luck on the defense discussions. In fact, I think we ought to be working on some of the sticking points that have precluded us from doing fighter plane cooperation. And we know what those issues are in both bureaucracies. And I have said we need to strike down all of these shibboleths that plague us in both bureaucracies. And who better to do it than Trump and Modi? These are powerful elected leaders who can really work to drive things. So in addition to that, I think we have some compelling discussions we need to have about the Indo-Pacific, about the Middle East. There is so much on the technology front: artificial intelligence, quantum computing, semiconductors, cybersecurity, defense. What I want to do is build out our agenda to include pharmaceuticals, especially the precursors, which are overwhelmingly coming from China, for the medicines that Americans and Indians consume for our well-being. We need to look at that supply chain very carefully. So I see no dearth of collaborative possibilities in the discussion between the two leaders.
Atul Keshap, for joining us from DC, thank you very much. I hope to have you back tomorrow as we look at the outcomes and the takeaways from this meeting. Unlike Dr. Aghi, you're putting up a far more brave front in terms of how this meeting is likely to go. Let's see how this ultimately turns out. Thank you, Ambassador Keshap, for joining us. Appreciate your time.